Шановні колеги, ми продовжуємо.
Dear colleagues, we continue our working day, and now the floor is given to the Ministry of Defense spokesman on ATO-related issues, Colonel Andriy Lysenko. Good afternoon, dear colleagues. Now the information about the events in the ATO area during the last 24 hours, and also about training of Ukrainian armed forces. Lugansk area ceasefire in Stanitsa Luganska didn't last even for a week. Yesterday, the militants shelled our positions from the opposite bank of Seversky Donetsk River. Also, active military actions continue in Popasnyansky region. Enemy shelling started at 6 p.m. and continued until late at night. After 9 p.m., the occupants started to use mortars, launching at our positions several tons of mines. That's why Ukrainian forces had to return fire. On the whole, during the last 24 hours in the Lugansk area, there were 7 enemy shellings, including 1 with the use of heavy weapons. The Donetsk area, as previously, there is the lowest number of shellings, but the situation is not calm. In Novgorodsk, ATO forces came under sniper fire of the enemy, and in Avdiivka, the occupants used 122mm artillery. In Svetlodarsk, Balch, Zaitsevo, and the Donetsk airport, yesterday it was calm. On the whole, during the last 24 hours in the Donetsk area, there were 3 enemy shellings, including 1 with the use of heavy weapons. The most difficult situation is in the Mariupol area. The military action started after 9 in the morning. The occupants started massive shelling with the use of heavy weapons of the positions of ATO forces in the part of the front line, Talakivka-Shirokine. And several positions came under enemy fire. The enemy, during 2-hour shelling, the enemy launched more than 120 mines at our positions and also shells. And between 3 and 7 p.m., the occupants delivered even more heavy shellings, launching more than 200 mortar mines and shells of 122mm cannons. And also the theater of military actions is expanded. The enemy violated ceasefire in Taramchuk, where he actively used mortars and armored vehicles. And after 11 p.m., the enemy used mortar battery that is deployed in Zaichenka and launched 60 mines at the direction of Vodyane. This was record high intensity of fire during this day. And also it was not calm in Krasnogorovka and Marienka. There the mortar shellings restarted, and also enemy snipers were active. And we say that the majority of the sound cases happened during the day. Ukrainian forces were forced to repeatedly return fire. On the whole, during the last 24 hours in the Mariupol area, there were 34 enemy shellings, including 19 with the use of heavy weapons. And yesterday in the region of ATO, 5 flights of enemy air drones were observed, 1 in Donetsk area and 4 in Mariupol area. On the whole, during the last 24 hours, in the result of the military actions, no Ukrainian serviceman was killed, but 4 servicemen were wounded. Confirmed losses of the enemy: 1 killed, 1 wounded. From Russia, they brought reinforcement for the militants. To Sverdlovsk station, they brought 2 Grads, 3 armored vehicles, 6 tanks with fuel and lubricant, and 3 freight railway cars with unknown freight. And to Kharkiv, they brought 6 tanks with diesel fuel and 2 with gasoline. SBU detained especially dangerous militant nicknamed Phil. It was identified that the detained, starting from 2014, took part in military actions in the ranks of the militants in Slovyansk and Savur-Mogyla. And also in Mariupol area. He repeatedly was awarded by his commanders. Ukrainian special services detained the militant when he was carrying out reconnaissance activities near Ukrainian positions in Mariupol area. His military crimes are confirmed by military service card issued by DPR. And one more militant voluntarily handed himself into police by using SBU program that is called They Wait for You Back Home. In 2014, the resident of Donetchina, under the influence of Russian propaganda, joined ranks of the militants. The man was defending the barracks of the occupants, but he didn't take part in military actions. He saw the bad attitude of Russian commanders to its subordinates, and that's why he left the militants in winter 2016. And then he handed himself to SBU in order to get chance for peaceful life in the territory of Ukraine. Also, SBU detained in Dnipro a 47-year-old resident who, by order of Russian special services, administered the page of internet community and spread separatist materials and called to annex Dnipropetrovsk region to Russia, and also they planned some pro-Russian meetings. So now his direct speech. In spring 2014, I joined an anti-Maidan group, and I read different sources of DPR, and I was connected by a representative of Russian special forces, and he proposed to take part in information war and to spread the information in Dnipropetrovsk, and I had to place articles and video on the page that Ukraine is part of Russia and Ukrainians cannot build their own state and Ukrainian army is not military capable, and that it would be great if our oblast joined Russia. And then this Russian, he got information from me about the attitude of our residents to Russia and to the situation. So he asked to organize meeting for money, but I refused. These days, the law enforcement in Lysychansk prevented sending by the serviceman the parcel that he was trying to send to Chernigov. 16 hand grenades, 5 dispersed magazines, 2 automatic guns, and also TNT block of 400 grams. And in Chernigov, there were field training of tank detachments of National Guard. The goal of 2-week training was the coordination of the crew's activity, improvement of skills, and also taking main and alternate positions, maneuvering, and also military exercises and firing exercises. And also servicemen of National Guard were trained in radiochemical biological defense. During the week, they improved their skills in reconnaissance activities and prevention of consequences that are caused by mass destruction weapons. And military personnel demonstrated high professional level. And in Kievshina, Tactical Aviation Brigade had some training in sudden attack on the aerodrome. So firstly, there was a warning. They gathered, got equipment and arms. Then they had exercises in repelling air attacks of enemy airplanes and the activation of subversive groups of the enemy. Also these days, it was field exercises of National Guardsmen, and they were trained in assaulting buildings, topography, and coordination of military actions on the battlefield. And also, the National Center of Air Forces had some training. They had training for those servicemen who serve in the anti-aircraft defense. They got professional knowledge and practical skills. They used in their training radio equipment and got the experience that is close to that is on the battlefield, taking into account ATO experience. And also on the base International Academy named after Hetman Sagadachny, they had some training of paratroopers. And during last 2 months, they will be trained under command of instructors from multinational training group. And according to the information provided by State Border Service, Kalanchak and Chaplinka checkpoints that are at the administrative border with occupied by Russia, Crimea occupied by Russia, they will stop their work until 27th of October, and the pass control regime will be carried out through Changar checkpoint. If you have questions, please ask. Do you have questions? Please introduce yourself first. Zagorodny Mikhailo. Tell us, please, what conditions should be created in order to withdraw the weapons and personnel in Stanitsa Luganska, because the forces are not withdrawn? All these conditions, they are stated in the framework agreement. Firstly, this is stop of fire during 7 days. Then there should be information to OSCE that carry out observation in this region about the movement of forces, redeployment, and the time up to 3 days to redeploy personnel and equipment that is in there. If you don't have other questions, this is the end of press conference. Thank you. The next event is at 1 p.m.